Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. War rages in the depths of space. Humanity is locked in a brutal conflict with the Zenari Coalition, a ruthless hierarchy of warlike alien races that enslave entire worlds. During a battle on the hostile planet Arachner, Earth soldier Captain Drake Thorne finds himself cut off from his squad. His escape pod crashes deep within the jungle, a place teeming with deadly predators. The impact rattled Drake's teeth as the escape pod slammed into a rocker surface, carving a long scar through the jungle. Warning lights bathed the interior in crimson as smoke curled from shorted circuits. Through the cracked viewport, alien trees with red bark and violet leaves blocked most of the twin suns' light. Drake coughed, tasting copper. His combat armor had absorbed most of the crash, but blood trickled from a gash above his eyebrow. The neural link to his squad had gone silent hours ago, just static where 12 other voices should be. Status report, he croaked, the pod's AI responding with garbled nonsense before dying completely. Drake released his harness, wincing as pain lanced through his ribs. Probably cracked, not broken. He'd survived worse. The emergency kit yielded a metapoc, which he pressed against his forehead, the cold sting of synth flesh sealing the wound. He checked his pulse rifle, still functional, thank God, and secured it across his back before retrieving the emergency beacon from beneath his seat. Standard operating procedure: activate the beacon, establish a defensive perimeter, and wait for extraction. Simple, except nothing was simple on Arachner. The pod's door released with a hiss, and humid air with alien scents hit him. Sweet decay and something sharp. Drake scanned the surrounding jungle. Dangerous-looking plants swayed in the breeze. Something chittered overhead, answered by a low, rumbling growl. Not exactly a vacation spot, he muttered, activating the beacon with his thumb. The small device pulsed with blue light as it broadcast his location to any Earth vessels within range. That's when he heard it, the unmistakable hum of an energy blade igniting behind him. Drake whirled, rifle raised, only to freeze as the weapon's barrel pressed against the throat of a blue-skinned figure who had somehow materialized at his back. She stood taller than him by half a head, her muscular body encased in dark combat armor, adorned with glyphs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Her face was a striking study in beautiful predatory features: high cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes like burnished gold coins that regarded him with cold calculation. Ridges of cartilage formed natural armor along her temples and jaw, extending down her neck to disappear beneath her armor. This was no ordinary soldier. This was a Valkyrie, an elite warrior of the Coalition, the bogeyman the human soldiers whispered about in their barracks. Her energy blade hummed mere centimeters from his throat, the pale blue glow illuminating the savage beauty of her face. Drake could feel the weapon's heat against his skin. One twitch and his head would part company with his shoulders. But something strange happened in that frozen moment. The Valkyrie warrior, a being trained from birth to kill without hesitation, paused. Those golden eyes flickered with something Drake couldn't identify. Not mercy, surely. Perhaps curiosity. For the first time in her life, she hesitated. Raylar had never seen a human up close before. They were smaller than her kind, softer looking. This one, though, he had the eyes of a warrior, clear and unflinching, even with death hovering at his throat. His combat armor bore the insignia of an Earth captain, the material scorched and dented from recent battle. "You should already be dead," she said, her voice carrying the slight metallic resonance common to her species. The translation implant beneath her jaw converted her native tongue into the human's language. The human's eyes narrowed. Then why am I still breathing? A fair question. Riolar wasn't entirely sure of the answer herself. Her orders had been explicit: kill any humans found in this sector. It was what she had done without question or hesitation for over 20 cycles of service to the Coalition. The warrior's code demanded it. Yet her wrist communicator chimed, breaking the standoff. Maintaining her blade at the human's throat, she glanced at the message scrolling across the small holographic display. Unit 7 eliminated. Lab breach at Sector 8. Containment failure. Native predators exposed to compound XR-37. Evacuation protocol 7 enacted. All remaining personnel terminate current objectives and proceed to extraction point Delta. Raylar felt an unfamiliar sensation ripple through her. Uncertainty. Her unit was dead. The experimental bioweapons lab had been compromised. And if the native fauna had been exposed to compound XR-37, a distant roar echoed through the jungle, followed by the sound of trees being uprooted. Whatever had made that sound, it was large and coming closer. Decision time. It appears, she said slowly, that we both face imminent death if we remain here. The human's gaze darted toward the direction of the roar, then back to her. Are you proposing what I think you are? Raylar deactivated her energy blade with a contemptuous flick of her wrist. A temporary arrangement, human. My unit is dead. Yours presumably as well. The jungle is now filled with mutated predators that will hunt us both. And why should I trust you not to kill me? The moment my back is turned, her lip curled in a sneer that revealed sharp canines. If I wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation. My honor is not so fragile that I need to resort to such tactics. Another roar closer now. The ground trembled beneath their feet. I know this planet, Raylar continued. You do not. There's an extraction point 2 days' journey northeast. We can reach it together or die separately. Your choice, human. The captain's expression hardened as he weighed his options, which they both knew were severely limited. Finally, he lowered his rifle. Captain Drake Thorne, Earth Defense Force. Raylar Valkyrie Hunter class. She gestured toward the dense undergrowth. We should move now. As if to emphasize her point, a massive shape crashed through the trees behind them. A nightmare fusion of reptile and insect, its hide glistening with toxic sweat. Multiple jaws gnashing as compound eyes fixed on the potential prey. After you, Drake said, raising his rifle. And thus began their journey through hell. The first day tested their fragile alliance to its breaking point. Arachnor's jungle was lethal even without the mutated predators. Carnivorous plants snapped at anything passing too close. Twice they had to shelter beneath rocks as acid rain fell, eating through vegetation. Your kind did this, Drake said during the second downpour, watching as a drop of acid created a perfectly circular hole through a massive leaf. Turned a harsh but balanced ecosystem into this. Reeler's expression remained impassive. The Coalition seeks to reform worlds in our image. Not all experiments succeed. Reform? You mean conquer and exploit? Her golden eyes flashed. And what does humanity do to the worlds it claims? Plant flowers and sing songs of peace. Drake fell silent, knowing she had scored a point. Humanity's expansion hadn't always been gentle, either. Still, there was a difference between establishing colonies and the systematic strip mining and biological warfare practiced by the Coalition. By midday, they reached a river with emerald-green waters flowing over black stones. We follow this upstream, Raylar said, scanning the bank. The ridge offers better visibility with fewer hiding places. Drake studied her as she planned. Everything about her was efficient. No wasted movement or words. Yet, there was something beneath that warrior exterior that had made her spare his life. We'll need to cross here, she continued. The water is safe to touch, but toxic if ingested. Drake nodded. Ladies first. The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. Always the gentleman, even to your enemy. Temporary ally, he corrected. This time she did smile. A brief flash of white teeth that transformed her face from merely striking to genuinely beautiful. As you say, Captain. She waded into the river, the water reaching her thighs. Drake followed, his rifle held above his head. The current was stronger than it appeared, pushing against them like unseen hands. They were halfway across when the water erupted. A massive, eel-like creature with multiple jaws rose from the depths. Run! Raylar shouted. Working together, they fought off the creature, her blades slicing through its hide, his rifle providing covering fire. The wounded predator retreated beneath the water. As they reached the opposite bank and continued their journey, they ran until exhausted, stopping where boulders created a natural shelter. Drake collapsed against one, while Raylar remained vigilant, scanning their surroundings. "You could have kept running," Drake said between breaths. "Left me to that thing." Rial turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Yes, why didn't you?" She considered this carefully. "The Warriors' Code demands that debts be repaid. You aided my escape. I am now even." Drake suspected there was more to it than that. In Earth's military, we're trained to leave no one behind, even temporary allies. "A strange philosophy for warfare," she replied. But her tone lacked its earlier edge. By nightfall, they found an abandoned research outpost, half reclaimed by the jungle, its doors forced open by something with tremendous strength. Inside lay evidence of what happened to the Coalition science team. "We can use this place for the night," she said. "The inner lab door is still intact." The night passed in uneasy shifts, one sleeping while the other kept watch. When it was Ria's turn to rest, she sat with her back against a wall, energy blade within reach. "Do you ever actually sleep?" Drake asked. "Valkyrie require less rest than humans," she replied. "Our bodies are more efficient." "Efficient," Drake repeated. "Is that how you see yourself?" "A machine designed for war." Her golden eyes fixed on him. "It is what I was bred to be." "That doesn't mean it's all you are." She tilted her head, studying him with newfound interest. "You are not what I expected from a human warrior." "Neither are you," Drake admitted. "From a Vari, I mean." By dawn, they had established a wary routine, moving in coordinated patterns that maximized their coverage without verbal communication. It was the kind of teamwork that usually took weeks to develop among human squads. With Rial, it felt instinctive. Their second day brought them to a massive clearing, the result of an orbital bombardment that had transformed several square kilometers of jungle into a crater. Coalition warships had targeted a human outpost, leaving nothing but ruins. "We'll need to cross exposed," Raylar said. "No cover for at least 2 kilometers." Drake nodded grimly. "Which means anything hunting us will have a clear line of sight." "Precisely. We should wait until dusk." They retreated to the trees, using the time to rest. As the light began to fade, Ryer suddenly went rigid. "What is it?" Drake whispered, instantly alert. She pulled him under a fallen tree trunk, her body partially covering his. "Coalition patrol," she breathed. 5 warriors, heavy class." Drake's pulse quickened. "How far?" 30 m and closing. "They're tracking us. Can we avoid them?" Her expression was grim. "Not if they have a tracker unit." She hesitated, then added, "There's something you should know, Captain." The formality of his rank, which she rarely used, alerted Drake that whatever she was about to say was significant. "I am listening. I'm not simply a warrior who broke protocol," she said. "I was once an elite assassin tasked with eliminating those the ruling caste deemed threats. And you refused." "I refused to execute unarmed prisoners for sport," she said with disgust. "I killed 2 guards, freed the prisoners, and fled. My former mentor, Commander Valkyr, leads the hunt personally." "Then we fight together," Drake said simply. Raylar blinked in surprise. "You would risk your life alongside a Valkyrie assassin, alongside someone who chose mercy when it would have been easier to follow orders." Something shifted in her expression, a softening around her eyes, a slight parting of lips. But before she could respond, a harsh voice cut through the gathering darkness, speaking in the guttural language of the Coalition. Riolar tensed, her hand moving to her blade. "They're here," she whispered. 5 warriors, as I thought. And yes, Valkyr leads them." 5 towering figures moved through the undergrowth with predatory grace. The leader stood taller than the others, his skin a deeper blue with ritual scars crisscrossing his exposed arms. A mask covered the lower half of his face. "We're outnumbered," Drake murmured. "We need a plan." Reeler's eyes glittered. "They expect to hunt us. They don't expect us to hunt them." Their original plan to use the ravine failed when the patrol brought scanners. Instead, they took position on a ridge overlooking the crater, defensible with clear sight lines. The proximity alarm vibrated silently against Drake's wrist. The warriors attacked from the flank, exactly where Realer had predicted. Drake and Ryer fought efficiently, taking down 3 warriors in quick succession. Momentary silence fell over the battlefield. "Vakar," Realer called. "Show yourself." A deep laugh echoed from the darkness. "Still the impetuous child I trained." He emerged like a nightmare, taller and broader than the others, armor adorned with battle trophies. His mask retracted, revealing a face marked with ritual scars and cold, calculating eyes. "The mighty R'hllor fighting alongside human vermin," Vakar said with contempt. "I expected better, even from a traitor." "You taught me to survive at any cost," she replied. "I learned the lesson too well." Vakar extended his hand. "Kill the human R'hllor. Return to the fold. The Archon will grant you clemency." This once Drake tensed. Would she consider the offer? It was her people, her culture, her way back from exile. R'hllor stood motionless. Then she moved. Her blade flashed toward Vakar. "My answer," she snarled. Vakar blocked with his double-bladed staff. "As I expected, you always were my greatest disappointment." They fought with lethal precision, their weapons a blur of blue energy. Neither could gain advantage. They knew each other's techniques too well. When Vakar landed a punishing blow to R'hllor's side, Drake fired. The pulse struck Vakar's shoulder, throwing off his killing stroke. The commander charged toward Drake in rage. R'hllor recovered and rejoined the fight, slicing across Vakar's back. Wounded and facing 2 opponents, Vakar retreated toward the cliff edge. "The Coalition does not forgive. We will hunt you to the ends of the galaxy. Then we'll make it a worthy chase," R'hllor replied. Vakar activated a thermal detonator and hurled it at their feet. "Perhaps, but you won't live to see it." "Down," Drake shouted, lunging for R'hllor. The explosion ripped through the air. Stone cracked beneath them as they were thrown backward. Through the dust, Drake saw Vakar activate a flight system in his armor and leap from a cliff. The ridge began to collapse. They ran, leaping over widening cracks as the structure gave way behind them. They reached solid ground just as the last of the ridge plummeted into darkness. "He escaped," Drake gasped, checking Ryer for injuries. A deep gash ran across her arm. "He'll be back," she said grimly with reinforcements. Drake bound her wound with a strip from his shirt. "Then we'd better not be here when he returns." R'hllor watched his hands as he worked. "You fight well for a human. High praise coming from you." Drake managed a tired smile. "Think we might survive this hellhole?" Her golden eyes met his, and for the first time there was warmth in them. "Perhaps with you at my side." Perhaps. They found an abandoned bunker as night fell in earnest. A forgotten relic of the early conflict that had once stored supplies, but now held only dust and shadows. Its reinforced walls and single entrance made it defensible, and a functional security door sealed them inside. Drake assessed their situation as R'hllor secured the perimeter. His rifle was down to 18 power, barely enough for one more firefight. His sidearm had 3 shots remaining. Food and water weren't immediate concerns thanks to the survival kit from his pod, but they wouldn't last beyond another day. The extraction point was still at least 12 hours away across the blasted crater and through another stretch of jungle. With Vakar hunting them and mutated predators roaming freely, the odds weren't good. R'hllor returned from her inspection, her movement slightly stiff from her injuries. "We're secure for now," she reported. "I've set proximity alerts." Drake nodded, gesturing to a small medkit he'd laid out. "Seat, let me check that wound properly." To his surprise, she complied without argument, settling cross-legged on the floor beside him. Drake carefully removed the makeshift bandage, revealing a deep laceration that would have incapacitated a human. On R'hllor, it seemed little more than an inconvenience. "Your physiology is remarkable," he commented, applying antiseptic. "Human soldiers would be in shock from a wound like this." "Valkyrie are engineered for resilience," she replied. "Pain is instructional, not debilitating." "You mean eugenics?" "I mean survival," she countered. "The Coalition faces threats you cannot imagine." "At what cost?" "Your freedom to choose who you become." Ryer fell silent, watching him finish. No one asked such questions in the coalition until I began asking them myself. Drake met her gaze. And what answers did you find? None. Only more questions. She studied him with open curiosity. Now, why did you become a soldier? She asked. Choice, he said simply. My parents had other plans. I chose the military because it was my decision. And has it satisfied you? Drake smiled ruefully. It brought me here, didn't it? To a hostile planet hunted by warriors and monsters to this moment, he clarified, talking with someone I would have considered an enemy days ago. Reeler's expression grew thoughtful. You are unusual, Drake Thorne. So I've been told. He began repacking the medkit. You should rest. I'll take first watch. I require less rest than you. You've also lost blood and fought an elite warrior in hand-to-hand combat. Drake pointed out. Rest, Rial. That's an order. She raised an eyebrow. Rich, you presume to give me orders? I presume to care about whether my ally is combat ready tomorrow. Drake's tone softened. Please. Something in his voice must have reached her because she nodded slowly. Very well. Wake me in 4 hours. Raylar settled against the wall, her posture still alert even in repose. Drake positioned himself near the door, rifle across his lap, his senses attuned to any sound that might indicate danger. As the hours passed, he found his gaze repeatedly drawn to her. In sleep, the fierce warrior softened slightly. The hard lines of her face relaxed, giving her an almost vulnerable appearance. It was difficult to reconcile this reel with the deadly assassin who had fought with such lethal grace atop the ridge. 3 hours into his watch, she stirred, eyes opening to find him looking at her. You're staring, she observed without accusation. Drake didn't deny it, just making sure you're still breathing. I told you Valkyrie are resilient. She sat up fully alert despite the brief rest. Your concern is unnecessary. Probably he agreed, but they're all the same. She tilted her head, studying him with that intense golden gaze. Why do you look at me like that, human? The question caught Drake off guard. Like what? With warmth, she said. Others look at my kind with fear or hatred. You look differently because you're beautiful. The word hung between them. Ryer's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Beautiful. She laughed in disbelief. You're the first to ever say that. Drake held her gaze. Then everyone else was blind. Raylar looked away. Among the Valkyrie, beauty is measured in scars and victories, not in appearance. Different cultures, different standards. Drake shrugged. Where I come from, strength can be beautiful, too. So can courage. She regarded him with newfound curiosity. Your people are strange, Drake Thorne. But in her golden eyes, for the first time, there was doubt, not about their survival, but about herself and what she might be beyond the warrior's code. Morning brought renewed purpose. The extraction point was close. An abandoned hangar with a working shuttle. Their plan was simple. Reach it and escape before Vaca returned with reinforcements. They set out at first light, crossing the blasted crater. The landscape was eerily silent. Even the predators avoiding this place of destruction. Your people did this? Drake asked, surveying the devastation. Rialer nodded grimly. Orbital bombardamento. Standard procedure for human outposts that resist initial ground assault. There are civilians here, scientists mostly non-combatants. She didn't respond immediately. Her expression closed. Finally, she said, the coalition does not recognize such distinctions in warfare. All who stand with the enemy are enemies themselves. Do you believe that? Her steps faltered slightly. I did once. They continued in silence. The crater's edge gave way to spare jungle. Easier travel, but less cover. By midday, they spotted the hangar, a massive structure partially reclaimed by vegetation, its main door standing open. Looks intact, Drake observed from their position at the tree line. No obvious damage to the structure. Raylar frowned. Too easy. Vaca would have secured this location first. Maybe he hasn't had time. Drake scanned the area through his rifle scope. Maybe he doesn't know about it. He knows. Her voice was certain. He always knows. They approached cautiously, using the scattered vegetation for cover when possible. The hangar loomed larger as they drew near, its entrance a dark maw that promised either salvation or death. 50 m from the entrance, Roller suddenly froze, raising a hand for silence. Drake stopped instantly, every sense alert. "Movement," she whispered. Inside, multiple targets. Drake adjusted his rifle settings, wishing for the 100th time that its power cell wasn't so depleted. "How many?" "At least 6. Heavy weapons." They exchanged grim looks. Even at their best, those weren't promising odds. In their current condition, wounded, exhausted, low on ammunition. It approached suicide. "We need a diversion," Drake said. "Something to scatter them. Give us a fighting chance." Ryler's gaze swept the perimeter, settling on a fuel depot adjacent to the hangar. "That," she said, pointing. "If we could ignite it," Drake nodded, understanding immediately it would draw some of them out, divide their forces. "I'll set the charges," Ryer decided. "You position yourself to cover my retreat and take advantage of the confusion." "No." Drake's objection was firm. "It's too exposed. I'll set the charges." She turned to him, irritation flashing in her golden eyes. "I am faster, more agile, and the only one who knows how to fly the shuttle," Drake countered. "If something goes wrong, you need to be able to complete the mission." Raylar opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Logic was logic, even when she didn't like it. "Very well, but at the first sign of trouble, you retreat. Understood?" Drake managed a crooked smile. "Yes, ma'am." He moved out, staying low and using every scrap of cover available. The fuel depot was a collection of massive containers, each bearing coalition markings indicating highly volatile contents, perfect for their purposes. Drake reached the closest container unseen and examined it for vulnerabilities. A control panel on its side regulated pressure. Disrupt those systems, and the rest would follow. He set to work, using his combat knife to pry open the panel. Inside, a maze of circuitry greeted him. Overloading the primary regulator should create a cascading failure, enough for a significant explosion without destroying the hangar itself. Drake was so focused that he almost missed the soft scuff of boots behind him. Almost, he whirled, bringing his sidearm up just as a massive Valkyrie warrior lunged from the shadows. Drake fired twice, the shots only slowing the attacker. He rolled aside from the warrior's axe, then fired his last bullet point blank into the warrior's face, dropping him instantly. But the damage was done. Shouts of alarm rang out from the hangar. They knew he was there. Drake returned to the panel, fingers flying over the circuits. The system began to whine, the intensity rapidly increasing. The explosion would buy him maybe 30 seconds. With 20 seconds left, warriors were closing in from 3 directions. At 15 seconds, Ryer erupted from the undergrowth, her energy blade blazing as she charged the coalition forces. "Run!" she shouted, engaging 2 warriors simultaneously. Drake sprinted from cover, firing his empty rifle to create the illusion of returning fire. They reached the hangar entrance just as the fuel depot detonated. The explosion rocked the ground, sending a fireball into the sky. Secondary explosions followed, engulfing several pursuing warriors. Inside the hangar, they used the confusion to their advantage, moving through the shadows toward a shuttle at the far end. Sleek, predatory in design and their salvation. "Cover me," Raylar said, racing toward the craft. "I need 30 seconds to initiate launch." Drake provided suppressing fire with Reeler's sidearm. The hangar doors began to close, someone triggering emergency protocols. "Drake!" Raylar called from the shuttle's open hatch. Now he broke from cover, sprinting as energy bolts tracked him. Pain exploded across his back as a bolt grazed him. Drake stumbled but recovered, throwing himself the last few meters into the shuttle. Raylar sealed the hatch and powered up the engines. "Hold on," she commanded, her hands flying across the control panel. The shuttle's engines winded to life, lifting the craft from the hangar floor. Drake dragged himself to a seat, gritting his teeth against the burning pain across his back. Through the viewport, he saw the hangar doors continuing their inexorable closure. "We're not going to make it," he said, watching the gap narrow. Reeler's expression hardened with determination. "Yes, we are." She slammed the throttle forward. The shuttle surged toward the diminishing opening, scraping against the edges of the doors as it burst through into open air. Behind them, the hangar erupted in secondary explosions as munitions stores ignited. They were free for the moment. Ryer guided the shuttle into a steep ascent, breaking through Arachnor's cloud cover into the upper atmosphere. The craft shuddered around them, not designed for such an aggressive flight profile. Drake checked the sensor readouts. Multiple signatures in pursuit. Coalition fighters, 5 of them. I see them. Reeler's voice was calm, her focus absolute as she executed a series of evasive maneuvers that no human pilot could have matched. There's an Earth battleship on the far side of the moon. If we can reach it, the first volley of enemy fire streaked past them, missing by meters. The second clipped their port stabilizer, sending the shuttle into a momentary spin that Raylar corrected with preternatural speed. We need more power, she growled, bypassing safety protocols to redirect energy from life support to engines. The shuttle's speed increased, but the pursuing fighters matched it effortlessly. Drake scanned for options on the tactical display. There, he said, indicating a dense asteroid field orbiting the planet. If we can reach that, we might lose them. Raylar nodded, adjusting their course. The shuttle dived toward the field, weaving between massive chunks of rock and ice. 2 coalition fighters followed while the others circled the perimeter, waiting to intercept should they emerge. What followed was a deadly game through the asteroid field. Reeler's piloting was miraculous, navigating tight passages, executing sharp turns, and using cover to ambush one pursuer. The coalition fighter exploded against an asteroid, briefly illuminating the darkness. But luck couldn't hold forever. A direct hit to their starboard engine sent them spinning toward a massive asteroid. Raylar fought the controls, managing to transform what would have been a fatal collision into a glancing blow. The shuttle bounced off the surface, systems failing across the board. We're losing primary power, she reported, her voice tense. Hull integrity at 62 and falling. Drake strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat, assisting with emergency protocols. The Earth ship is responding to our distress signal. They're sending interceptors, but they won't reach us in time. Another hit rocked the shuttle. Warning lights bathed the cockpit in crimson. Through the viewport, Drake could see the remaining coalition fighter closing for the kill. Raylar looked at him, a decision forming in her golden eyes. Take the controls. What? I can't fly this. You don't need to fly it. Just keep it steady. She released her harness, standing despite the shuttle's violent shaking. There's an escape pod, 1-person capacity. You can reach your ship. Drake stared at her in disbelief. You're crazy if you think I'm leaving you behind. This is the logical solution. Your people might accept one of their own returning with coalition intelligence. They will never accept me. Watch them. Drake's voice was steel. We go together or not at all. Another hit. The shuttle began to tumble, its remaining engine failing. There's no time to argue, Raylar insisted. One of us must survive to warn your people about the bioweapons program, about what's happening on Arachnor. Drake reached out, catching her arm in a grip that bordered on painful. I'm not leaving you. End of discussion. The determination in his eyes must have reached something in her because she nodded once sharply. Then we find another way. Together, they wrestled the dying shuttle into some semblance of control. The coalition fighter closed for the final shot and then disintegrated as energy beams lanced through it from behind. Earth interceptors streaked past, sleek and deadly. A voice crackled over the comm system. Unidentified shuttle. This is Captain Lin of the EDF Relentless. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Drake activated the response channel. Captain Tohin, this is Captain Drake Thorne, EDF Special Operations Authentication Code, Alpha 7 Delta 9er. I have critical intelligence about coalition operations on Arachnor and am accompanied by a high-value asset. Request immediate extraction and medical assistance. A pause then. Authentication confirmed. Captain Thorne. Tractors engaging now. Welcome home. The shuttle shuddered as tractor beams locked on, guiding them toward the massive Earth battleship that had emerged from behind Arachnor's moon. Drake released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. They had made it. Against all odds, they had survived. He turned to Ryer only to find her slumped in her seat, blue-black blood seeping from a wound in her side that she had concealed during their desperate flight. "You're hit," he said, quickly assessing the damage. The energy bolt had penetrated her armor, causing significant internal damage. Even with Valkyrie resilience, it was serious. "A minor inconvenience," she murmured, but her skin had paled to a duller blue, and her breathing was labored. "Hold on," Drake said, applying pressure to the wound. "Just hold on." The shuttle was drawn into the battleship's hangar bay, landing with a gentle bump that nevertheless caused Raylar to wince. Outside, armed soldiers surrounded the craft, weapons trained on the hatch. "They will kill me on sight," Ryer said, her voice weakening. "A Valkyrie assassin on an Earth vessel. Not while I'm here." Drake unbuckled her harness, lifting her with careful strength. "Can you walk?" She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. Without hesitation, Drake gathered her into his arms. Despite her height and muscle density, the adrenaline coursing through him made her weight manageable. "This is undignified," she protested weakly. "Dignity is overrated. Survival isn't." Drake adjusted his grip. "Ready?" She nodded, her golden eyes holding his for a moment. "I'm in your hands, Drake Thorne." The hatch opened, revealing Earth soldiers with weapons raised. Their expression shifted from readiness to shock as Drake emerged with a Rio Rhea in his arms. "Captain Thorne," a lieutenant stepped forward. "Sir, that's a Valkyrie. She's under my protection," Drake replied firmly, "and needs immediate medical attention." The soldiers hesitated, but eventually cleared a path. In the medical bay, the staff stabilized Raylar despite her alien physiology. As she drifted in and out of consciousness, she caught Drake's hand. "Why?" she asked weakly. "Because you don't belong to them anymore," he said softly. "You are free." 3 days later, Raylar woke in the battleship's medical bay. Her wounds had been treated skillfully, leaving only minimal discomfort. "Easy there," Drake said from beside her bed. "You've been unconscious for 3 days." She took in her surroundings. "Am I a prisoner?" Drake shook his head. "A guest?" "The intelligence you provided about the Coalition's bioweapons program has already saved 3 human outposts. And what happens to me now?" "That's partly up to you," Drake replied. "Some want to debrief you extensively. Others see potential for a diplomatic breakthrough. And what do you want?" His eyes met hers. "I want you to have choices, real ones, not just the illusion the Coalition offered." The ship's captain visited briefly, confirming her status as an honored guest rather than a prisoner. When he left, Raylar turned to Drake. "This is unexpected. I anticipated interrogation, not hospitality." "Times are changing," he replied. "Maybe what happened on Arachner is a sign that there's another way forward." Ryer wasn't convinced. The Coalition's hatred of humanity ran deep, as did human fear of the Valkyrie. But as she looked at Drake, this human who had fought beside her, carried her to safety, and now sat vigilant at her bedside, she wondered if perhaps change was possible after all. "You should rest, too," she said, noting the fatigue in his features. "You've upheld your end of our alliance admirably." Drake smiled again, that warm expression that still caught her off guard. "It stopped being just an alliance a while ago, I think." Before she could ask what he meant, he stood stretching muscles stiff from hours in the uncomfortable chair. "I'll be back later. Try not to terrorize the medical staff while I'm gone." After he left, Ryer lay back, contemplating the strange turn her life had taken. From elite assassin to fugitive to what? Ally of humanity, defector, or something else entirely? Something without a name yet? When she drifted into sleep, her dreams were not of battle and glory as they had always been, but a human voice saying words no one had ever spoken to her before. "You are free." 1 week later, Riolar stood at a viewport on the relentless observation deck, watching as the stars streaked by in the hypnotic patterns of faster-than-light travel. Her wounds had healed with remarkable speed, impressing even the ship's medical staff. She had been granted limited access to non-sensitive areas of the vessel, always under escort, but treated with respectful caution rather than outright hostility. The debriefings had been extensive, but not coercive. She had shared what she knew of coalition operations, troop movements, and especially the bioweapons program on Arachner. In return, she had been given glimpses of human society that contradicted much of what the coalition had taught about their enemy. Art, music, literature, the concept of individual rights and freedoms. It was disorienting, challenging, and strangely exhilarating. She sensed Drake's approach before he reached her, a growing awareness of his presence that she couldn't quite explain. He joined her at the viewport, standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "Quite a view," he commented, watching the star streaks. "Never gets old." "It's different from coalition vessels," she replied. "Our viewports are functional, designed for tactical assessment, not this appreciation of beauty for its own sake," Drake suggested. "That seems to be a recurring theme in our cultural differences." Raylar turned to him, studying his profile. In the past week, she had come to recognize the subtle nuances of human expressions, particularly his. The slight crinkle at the corners of his eyes when genuinely amused, the firm set of his jaw when determined, the softness that entered his gaze when he looked at her. "I've been meaning to ask you something," she said. Drake met her eyes. "Ask away. On Arachner in the bunker, you called me beautiful. Did you mean it, or was it merely an attempt to establish rapport with an alien ally?" The question clearly surprised him. For a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he smiled. Not the diplomatic smile he used with his superiors, but the real one, the one that reached his eyes. "I meant it," he said simply. "I still do." Something unfamiliar fluttered in Ryer's chest, a sensation both unsettling and pleasant. "I have been called many things in my lifetime. Lethal, efficient, merciless, but never beautiful. Then the coalition doesn't know what it's missing." Drake's voice softened. "Beauty isn't just about appearance. Real art. It's about who you are, what you do, how you see the world. It's about choosing mercy when cruelty would be easier. It's about questioning what you've been taught and finding your own truth." She absorbed his words, turning them over in her mind like unfamiliar objects. "Your people see me as a monster," she observed. "A killer from a race of killers." "Some do," Drake acknowledged. "Others are willing to look deeper, to see the person, not just the soldier. As you did, as I try to do." He turned toward her fully. "Now we're all shaped by our circumstances, our training, our culture, but we're not defined by them. Not unless we choose to be. You've already proven that by the choices you've made." Raylar considered this. The concept still new, but gradually taking root. "And what choices lie before me now?" "Many." Drake said, "Earth has offered you asylum in exchange for your cooperation. You could become a cultural liaison, helping us understand the coalition better. Or you could choose a completely different path. Study, explore, find what interests you beyond warfare." The possibilities were simultaneously liberating and overwhelming. A life not dictated by the warrior's code, not measured in missions completed and enemies slain. A life of choices. "And what of you, Drake Thorne?" she asked, surprising herself with the question. "What path do you choose?" Something shifted in his expression, a vulnerability he rarely showed. "I've requested a temporary reassignment from field operations. Diplomatic Corps is interested in my first-hand experience working with a Valkyrie ally. You would become a diplomat." The idea seemed incongruous with the warrior she had fought beside. "Not exactly. More of an advisor, someone who's seen that cooperation is possible, even between supposed enemies." He hesitated, then added, "It would keep me stationed on Earth, where you'd be if you accepted their offer." The implication hung between them, unspoken but clear. He was choosing a path that would keep him near her. Before she could respond, the ship's comm system activated. "Captain Thorne and honored guest, Rialer, please report to the bridge. We're approaching Earth space." Drake smiled. "Ready to see your new potential home?" Together they made their way to the bridge, where Captain Lin nodded in greeting. The main view screen showed a blue-green planet growing larger as they approached. "Earth cradle of humanity. We'll be entering orbit in approximately 10 minutes. Lin informed them. "There's quite a reception committee assembling. Word of your defection has spread. Raylar, you've become something of a symbol." Rialer frowned slightly. "I did not defect for political purposes. My choices were personal. Personal choices can have far-reaching consequences, Lynn replied, especially when they challenge deeply held assumptions on both sides. As Earth grew larger on the view screen, Ryer felt Drake's presence beside her, steady, reassuring. In the chaos of the past 2 weeks, he had become her one constant, a fixed point around which her changing world revolved. "Captain Thorne," she said quietly, "I find I am uncertain about what awaits me." Drake's hand found hers, a gesture so natural it surprised them both. "Whatever it is, you won't face it alone." For the first time since leaving Rickner, perhaps for the first time in her life, Rialer felt something that might have been hope. The Relentless slipped into Earth orbit, the blue planet filling the view screen. Below, a new life awaited, not one dictated by the Coalition or the Warriors' Code, but one she would shape herself with choices made freely. She was no longer simply a Valkyrie assassin or a fugitive. She was Riolar, and for the first time, that name belonged truly to her. As if reading her thoughts, Drake smiled and whispered, "Welcome,